So my topic this morning is love is revealed in many ways. So what I thought first is, let's see what Ernest Holmes, our founder, says about love. He says love is the outpouring of spirit, the givingness of life. And then he says, in a lesser sense, it's the affection one has for one another. The principle of love is not to be confused with mere sentimentality, although forms of love are all aspects of it. It is the great transforming power which brings everything into harmony. It is the unifying principle, the creative element, the motivating power of all that is fine and noble in life. And he says, continuing in this explanation of love, there is but one ultimate impulsion in the universe. This impulsion or propelling force is love. And that always we shall see that spiritual mind practice is a combination of love and law. Love as impulsion, law as propulsion. And he reminds us that love is the healing force. Well, when you consider this, we can say that love is not only revealed in many ways, it's revealed in ultimate, unlimited ways. For it is the outpouring of spirit as life. However, to see love, we have to open our heart. To see love, we must look with both our heart and our eyes. To feel love, we must feel love with both our heart and our senses. And to know love, we must use both our heart and our mind. Well, sometimes it seems hard to believe that God, that love, is everywhere. For when we look around, we see pain and violence in many places. And yet love is always there, waiting for people to turn to it, to awaken to it. When we see people who rob others of their wealth and power, we see people who don't know how to find love, who don't know that the essence of love is inside them, and they seek to find it in other ways. When we see people who hurt others, we see people who hate their lives and think that by hurting others, their own hurt will lessen. They don't know that love is the answer. And they've turned to the shadow when they're really seeking the light. Sometimes it's hard to feel love toward these people who act this way. And yet Ernest Holmes reminds us, Jesus knew what we all must learn, that we cannot really have an attitude of dislike or hate or viciousness toward other people without robbing ourselves of the healing power and the comforting presence and the divine assurance that the universe itself stands on the shoulders of love. So when we hear about or see others acting in unloving ways, we do what we decide is the best to do, and we pray for the highest good. And as we pray for the highest good, and as we know love in our hearts, that love affects the race consciousness and lifts it to a higher level. Nona Brooks, who was one of the founders of divine science, says, "It is not strange that we are drawn to one who loves truly. It is not strange that we love, For God is love, and in love we have our being. The mystery is why we do not love all men more. We shall, when we see that love is God in action, and that we are opportunities for the expression of God love. Love is not an emotion, it is life. So what we teach that's so important in Science of Mind is we have to look past the appearances, past the circumstances, to see the truth that God love is there, awaiting our acknowledgement. Consider love on a more personal level. What do you believe about love? It is something that someone will give you and it's hard to find? Or is it something that's always available because it's an attribute of God and of you as an expression of God? If so, love is always present in you, as you, and you can share that love with others. And as you believe in love, so you receive love. Love is there, and the more we practice it, the more we feel it, and the more it is revealed. So ask yourself, as I ask myself, am I revealing love today? How can I reveal it more than I have been? What at first comes to mind is, there needs to be some very dramatic way to express love and have to say I love you to someone. But there's really so many ways to express love, little tiny ways as well as big declarations. And of course, in Valentine's Day, they have all the ads where the guy gives the woman the beautiful diamond ring or the hearts and flowers. But when you think about those ways are great, but what about all the little ways? I was reading a book, I pulled it off my bookshelf that I've had for a long time. It's called I Had It All the Time by Alan Cohen. And he talks about people doing little things to express love. He talked about one woman, he called her a heart-centered executive. He said as she would write her bills, she would write on the memo line, peace and joy be with you, on every bill. And, thinking I'm sending love and peace to the people who are monitoring this process. And then she got to a check she had to write for the IRS, thinking, do I really want to say peace and love to them? And then she goes, there's no exceptions to love. So she writes it, and she mails it in. And she figured, maybe nobody will see it. And a couple months later, she was going through her bank statement and her return checks, and on the back of that check to the IRS, it said, and also with you. So somebody did read it. Alan also talks about a story. He lives in Hawaii, and he said one day he was going home and his car broke down. And he lived out in the country part of it, not in the city, and he thought, well, I'll just hitchhike home. Of course, thought, not too many cars go by here. So he goes, no, I'll do it as an adventure in faith. And just know it will work. So he said pretty soon an old beat-up truck came along, and a man stopped and picked him up. And so to make conversation, he asked him what he did. And he said, well, I'm one of those guys that stands in front of the planes when after the jets land and they need to be guided into the gate, and I guide them into the gate. And Alan was kind of thinking, that sounds kind of boring, but of course he didn't say that. So he said, how do you like your job? And the man said, it's pretty interesting. He said, I meet all different kinds of pilots. He said, some of them are cold and treat me like a machine. Some of them thank me and smile, And he says, if you salute me, and I feel like $1,000,000. And, Alan says, just think, something little, like a little salute, can make a person's day. So there's so many ways, little ways, we can just show love. I was thinking, how many times have we given not just a thanks, but a heartfelt thanks to the mail carrier, the garbage man, to the grocery clerk, the person who takes our money at the gas station. Just all that, looking them in the eyes and sending them a heartfelt thanks, saying it. And how many times when we look at people, do we really look past appearances to see the God within them? And how many times do we count our blessings each day? And of course, don't forget that very important person you have to love, yourself, right? Alan Cohen in his book was talking about a time when he didn't love himself, when he was beating himself up. I don't know about you, but I've done that before. He bought a new computer. He was on his way to a tour because he goes around and speaks. And so he had gotten to the first hotel on the tour, was going to be speaking in the next few days. And so he starts messing with the new computer and programming it, and pretty soon he got it so it wouldn't work at all. And he was, very angry with himself and sort of doing the, oh man, you're so stupid thing. And he kept trying and, got worse, right? So finally he gives up, goes to bed. The next morning he calls the person who was running the tour and said, is there anybody around here that could come and fix my computer? So somebody came, and the guy had a little disc, and CD, fixes it in quite a short amount of time. And then he said, I have 3 programs that would probably help you, in your work. Would you like me to load them for you? And he said, sure. So the guy loaded these 3 programs on. And what Alan realized as the days went by was those 3 programs that the guy loaded on his computer really helped him a lot. And that if he had never messed with the computer and broken it, he never would have gotten those 3 programs. So he was saying, a lot of times we are looking with our little short-sighted vision, and that there's a bigger vision to look past it to the good. And he even says, he talks about character defects. I love this one. He says, character defects are simply character assets in the early stages of development. So if perhaps you're a bit controlling, it's just you're developing your leadership, your take charge. Or if you're known as the class clown, it's just because you're a tension reliever. You lighten people up. So he has all this look past where you're looking if it's a negative place and see the good in it. And I look at children all the time. I feel like children are such wise teachers. And I was drawing a picture with my granddaughter. She was drawing hers, I was drawing mine. So she drew both of us. And of course, she's as big as I am. And really, she's not as tall as I am. She's only 7. But the children, they don't look at appearances at height or age. They look at importance. And so, of course, she loves herself. She's as important as I am. And then my youngest granddaughter is 2.5.